We all know people we can count on when we're in trouble. We depend on them, even when there's no immediate crisis. In the back of our minds, we know these folks will come through when times are tough. They always have. Meet the people of the American Red Cross.
When disaster strikes, we're there, providing emergency food, clothing, and shelter.
We operate the premier blood service in the United States.
We make sure that the blood needed for emergencies is available on time, saving millions of lives.
We form the most extensive emergency network in the United States.
But we do much more than respond to immediate crises. We offer health and safety education to individuals, teaching them how to best prevent and cope with emergencies.
And we provide information about major health issues, such as the facts about AIDS.
We also provide the emergency communication link for military personnel and their families worldwide.
And together with the International Red Cross, we provide emergency assistance to people suffering from disasters overseas.
The American Red Cross is a name for some of our neighbors. More than 1.5 million volunteers around the country who can help us through an emergency when we need them.
Put your arm above your head. Here it up. Let's put a lot of pressure on your wrist. There you are. We're going to take care of it. What were you doing with the knife? Cutting the bust. How'd you happen to cut yourself? Now, get your arm up a little bit further. That's it. Keep that pressure. You're doing a good job. Let's take a look at everything up here. Oh, you can release it. Good, good. All right.
While on the job, there are times when you will come into contact with infectious materials that can make you ill. That's why it's important that you not only learn to recognize these situations, but you also learn how to protect yourself and others from becoming infected. This program discusses how infections occur, how they are spread, diseases that cause concern, and how to prevent disease transmission. Prevention includes practicing personal hygiene, using protective equipment, following engineering and work practice controls, and finally, cleaning and disinfecting your equipment properly. Remember, the better informed you are about infectious diseases, the less likely you are to contract or transmit them. Before discussing the types of infectious diseases, we should first consider how infections occur. Any disease that can be passed from people, objects, animals, or insects is considered infectious. The disease process begins when a disease-causing pathogen or germ enters the body. Generally, the body does an efficient job of keeping pathogens under control through its immune system. However, once inside the body, certain pathogens can overwhelm the immune system, causing a serious infection. Left untreated, certain infections can be deadly. One of the best ways to protect yourself is to understand the conditions that are necessary for an infection to occur. First, a pathogen must be present. Second, it must be sufficient in quantity to cause disease. Third, a person must be susceptible to the pathogen. And finally, the pathogen must enter through an appropriate transmission site. If any of these conditions are missing, infection does not occur. There are 4 ways in which pathogens can be transmitted: direct contact, indirect contact, through the air we breathe called airborne transmission, and from the bite of an insect or animal called vector-borne transmission. Direct contact poses the greatest risk of transmission, especially to someone administering emergency care. It occurs when someone touches an infected person's body fluids. Indirect transmission occurs when you touch objects that have been contaminated by an infected person, such as soiled linens or dressings. Sharp objects present a particular risk. Airborne transmission may occur when an infected person coughs or sneezes and you inhale the infected droplets. Because exposure to contaminated air is usually brief, the chances of becoming infected this way are less likely than through direct contact. And finally, bites from infected carriers are known as vector-borne transmissions. Examples of infections include rabies from dog and other animal bites, Lyme disease from tick bites, and encephalitis from mosquito bites. The 2 most common pathogens, bacteria and viruses, cause the diseases of greatest concern. Bacteria surround us every day, but these one-celled microorganisms do not depend on other organisms for life. They can live outside the body harmlessly. Once inside the body, however, certain bacteria can cause diseases such as meningitis, scarlet fever, and tetanus. Bacterial infections may be relatively simple to treat if caught early. Antibiotics are often prescribed to help eliminate conditions caused by these bacteria. Viruses, on the other hand, depend on other organisms to live and reproduce. They do not respond to treatment with antibiotics. In fact, very few medications can effectively fight a viral infection. The most frequent viral infection is the common cold. If you've ever had a cold, you know that the body's immune system will eventually fight off the virus. Other viruses are not so easily dismissed. Some, such as herpes and meningitis, can produce chronic and debilitating problems. While some viruses can be treated successfully, others, like the human immunodeficiency virus, the virus that causes AIDS, cannot. Let's take a closer look at several diseases that are of particular concern. The first is herpes. This virus causes infectious lesions and blister-like sores on the skin and mucous membranes. Herpes is transmitted by direct contact, usually through an opening in the skin or through mucous membranes, and can be extremely contagious. Meningitis, a severe infection of the covering of the brain and spinal cord, can be caused by either viruses or bacteria. Meningitis is easily transmitted by direct and indirect contact, as well as by airborne means. Its viral form is transmitted through contaminated food and water, whereas its bacterial form is passed through mucus in the nose and mouth. Tuberculosis is a bacterial disease that most commonly strikes the respiratory system. Transmission usually occurs as a result of inhaling airborne droplets from a coughing TB carrier. Hepatitis is a viral disease that has 3 main forms. Hepatitis A, also known as infectious hepatitis, is transmitted both directly and indirectly through contaminated water, shellfish, food, and infected stool. The hepatitis B virus, or HBV, is much more serious than hepatitis A. HBV used to be commonly referred to as serum hepatitis because it is transmitted through direct or indirect blood-to-blood contact. This includes sexual contact, transfusions, needle sticks, and cuts and other openings in the skin. It is not transmitted by casual contact, such as shaking hands. If a virus cannot be clearly identified as hepatitis A or B, it is labeled non-A, non-B. There are several strains, including one identified and labeled as hepatitis C.